you knew we were going to cover it. You knew that we had to cover it. You knew I wasn't about to let this topic go by with at least giving a little bit of my opinion in regards to this subject. And for those who may not know what I am speaking on, I am talking about gentlemen's agreements. Yes, the discussion has been brought out again after Luminosity has claimed that they intend to play with the Rampart, despite every other team claiming that they want it to be taken out. Now, to provide a quick little backstory, this weapon, the Rampart, pretty much gave Luminosity a championship, gave them the win at CWL Fort Worth. In terms of respawn, Classic of LG went from a 0.82 without it to a 1.17 with it, which equals out to a 0.35 difference. When LG needed an X factor, because Formal clearly wasn't having the best event of his life, neither was John. They needed someone along with Slacked and along with Gunless, who was in his MVP form, to play at their best. They needed someone else to put them over the edge. And when Classic had that Rampart in his hands, when he went from, like I said, what was it, a 0.82 to a 1.17, that's what did it. But whenever we all saw this, whenever we were all witnessing the grand finals and watching LG perform throughout the winners bracket at Fort Worth, the players sought out and said, all right, we need this weapon taken out. We've seen enough. We already know it needs to be taken out of the game. It is far too powerful for our liking. And for Luminosity to respond the way that they did, who wouldn't, right? Who wouldn't look at this current system and say, why would we want to get rid of a weapon that just helped us win an event? And you know what? They shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to get rid of this weapon. Luminosity shouldn't be punished because they happen to be a great team who managed to be a step ahead of the competition with the Rampart. We all know the weapon is great, right? We've seen it. But what if, for whatever reason, Luminosity is the best team in the game with it after every other team got practice with it? And like I said, in regards to this, what if we did a little bit more testing on a weapon and realized, wow, this isn't actually as overpowered as we thought. Wow, that actually happens to maybe have a few counters to it than we originally thought. What if there was a system in play that maybe allowed us to work on this a little bit more, to realize, maybe put it in a test server or a test system before we already go out there and say, okay, this is done, we're not going to utilize this. So what if that system was in play and we realized that Luminosity may not be crazy? Maybe they were just ahead of the curve, or maybe they just happen to be innovative. And this is what brings me to this point. Currently in Call of Duty Esports, strategic innovation is totally taken out of the game before it has an opportunity to show itself. If something is out of the ordinary, teams are immediately on the gun to make sure that it can't ruin the game. Well, why is that? Because players and teams realize that in order to make sure the game isn't messed up or where it shouldn't be, they oftentimes feel the need to step in because of the long, dragged-out process it has previously taken in order to get something patched out. And for Call of Duty, we don't have that kind of time, right? If a weapon or a streak or an attachment is overpowered for more than a month, let's say it's overpowered for 2 months, well, guess what? That's 25% of the game's life cycle. We don't have time to allow the patching process to take hold. By the time the game is perfect is oftentimes when the game is over. Gentlemen's agreements ruin creativity, they ruin excitement, but they are necessary. They are a necessary evil because of the way that the system currently works and based on the yearly cycle. Okay. Well, surely it has to be someone's fault. Who do we direct the blame toward? Who do we blame in this situation? Does it fall on Luminosity? Is it Luminosity's fault for not going with every other team and agreeing? No, it's not their fault. It's the player's fault, the other team's fault, for maybe not allowing this weapon to be in circulation for longer. No, it shouldn't be their fault either. The fault, ever since gentlemen's agreements ever became a thing, falls on the lack of infrastructure in Call of Duty Esports right now. Ever since it formed, it falls on the lack of infrastructure that Call of Duty has never had and still has yet to have. The reason why gentlemen's agreements exist in the first place is because of the game's inability to become competitive and to be competitive out of the box. And as we go deeper, well, is that the developer's fault? Is it the developer's fault for this situation? Regardless, Call of Duty's yearly cycle is, while in a positive outlook, great because there is always something to look forward to. It's also extremely negative for a number of different reasons, such as this one to be a prime example. It's very difficult to make a game competitive out of the box, especially when a majority of the player base comes for public matches. And this is an aspect that I think will dramatically change with franchising next year. Multiplayer now with millions of dollars in the balance, with obviously the CWO becoming franchise next year, I think will be a big focus, as now Activision has pretty much put their seal of approval. They've signed the signature. They put a stamp. They've done everything to show, hey, we're investing in multiplayer next year. So I'd imagine that systems will be put in play, communities will be put in play, the infrastructure will be there next year in regards to these situations of which we currently are dealing with and have dealt with since Black Ops 2 and Ghost, when I first heard of gentlemen's agreements. Now, GAs were never going to be a perfect system, right? And because there is no real infrastructure. What this committee, if you want to call it that, whatever these opinions are based off of, is solely players, right? Players have the opinions in the situation, and those could be easily skewed, right? If I was to lose to Luminosity in the grand finals and say, oh, I wasn't practiced with the Rampart, thing is overpowered. The thing is just way too good. Did you see Classic with the Rampart? I haven't used it, but I know that he was playing super well with it, and for him to increase that way, surely we got to get rid of this thing. So my take is that I understand Luminosity's decision. I do. I understand the decision for them to say, hey, you know what? We're going to keep playing with it. Whatever. We're going to keep playing with it. Why should we have to give something up that we were good with? But I also see the same side from the players and the other teams saying, why should we allow a weapon which seems to be incredibly overpowered when we've done this in the past? And everyone's agreed. When we wanted to get rid of said attachment, when we wanted to get rid of said, streak, said whatever it may be in the past, and they were on board, why do they want to get rid of it now? It's probably just because they won an event. You can make arguments for both. You absolutely can. And you're meant to, because both sides have a point, because gentlemen's agreements have helped Call of Duty in the past, but by no means do they solve every problem. They are a necessary evil because of how the game works as of right now, and so I truly see both sides. Now, a major reason as for why much of the community is on the side of Luminosity is because they've been blacklisted. Yes, they've been eliminated from TENS lobbies. They've not really been allowed to scrim other teams currently in the Pro League. They pretty much are not getting any practice in regards to a lot of situations. They've so much as been actually kicked out of lobbies. There's been a lot of Reddit highlights, even Twitter videos of players trying to join, like I said, scrims or 10 lobbies from Luminosity, and they've been kicked out and pretty much have said that until they agree with us, they're not going to be allowed to play. Now, this situation is different. This situation honestly makes me angry. Now, I do get why teams aren't wanting to play Luminosity in certain instances, especially in scrims, because they're the only team who plays with a Rampart. Why would we want to scrim a team when they're the only ones who don't want to play with a weapon? Why should we have to play a team who disagrees with us? And this would be my response to that. As I speak on GAs, every professional player knows the system doesn't work. Every pro knows the system is broken, and for the reasons that I just laid out. But I guarantee you, if a few of these teams were in the same position as Luminosity, hot off a win and with a weapon that isn't illegal, they would be doing the exact same thing. If not, at least maybe want to do the same thing, but will be too cowardly to express their opinions in fear of looking like an outsider. We all know the system isn't perfect, and that will never be the case. Why do you feel as if it's right to ban a team from playing and or improving because they won't agree with you in a situation that we both know is broken? Instead of banning a team for having a different understanding and a different point of view, how about you come together and instead look for a solution? Yes, I may or may have not just said that. How about you work together or work out a way, which, let me be clear, should they have to do all this work necessarily? No, they shouldn't have to do this, but sometimes you have to do things that you don't really want to. Come together and form a real players union. We've already had a chat where we discuss these things. That's been the common answer that I've heard from a number of different Reddit posts, from a number of different responses from pros on Twitter. We already have a chat where we discuss these things. No, an actual voted on players system, a union-like formation of players that are trusted, who will vote on the betterment of the player base that could honestly even help with player safety. That's been a big topic that we've had in the Call of Duty Esports scene. Heading into this year's Pro League has been players being dropped early, maybe not having the right systems in play, the contracts in play, and players have been receiving a lot of negatives for that. They've been getting kicked off teams of which maybe they originally deserved a right for a spot. Maybe the 3-5 player rule that I've been talking about would be in play if we had a real players union. And by no means does every esport have it. I mean, it's kind of a rarity, honestly, in other esports to have that be the case. But Call of Duty is a much different esport, right? The yearly cycle itself, we are playing a new game every single year. Maybe we need something to provide a little bit of stability and some help for the players. If a system like that was formed and was handled correctly, I guarantee you, at least heading into next season for the CWL and or Activision, they would work with the players union for things that we're talking about now. Complaining and making Twitter videos about how the game is broken will only get you so far. Creative and real discussion is how things are going to be accomplished. So, do I get where LG is coming from in regards to the Rampart? Yes, I absolutely do. Do I get where players are coming from in terms of wanting to eliminate something before it spreads because of the past history? I absolutely do. But blacklisting a team for having a different opinion, in my eyes, which is also correct, is ridiculous if you're not going to work it out. Just solely exiling a team and/or a specific player without real and express communication is unacceptable.